Hey everybody, today's sponsor for this video is the movie review podcast Insomniac Movie Reviews. Hosted by Dylan Joyce and Brad Essick, these two make an in-depth review of the latest film releases as well as classic movies from the past. They're entertaining, comedic, and most of all, they are genuine towards their feelings of films and hold nothing back. You can find them on Google Play, iTunes, and Podbean. Of course, I will post links in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and now enjoy the video. Hello all of my friends, welcome back to the Branscome YouTube channel. I am Nick Branscome, and today I wanted to kind of shed some light on a topic that's been quite controversial. It's when people use the phrase rock is dead. I wanted to kind of give some insight as to what people actually mean when they say that, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. People think that when people say that they're meaning that rock is non-existent or that there's just no rock bands out there anymore or something like that, and that's not true. Rock is alive and well, even here in my state of North Carolina. There's plenty of original new rock bands out there, a lot of local bands, just like myself, playing in a local band, just trying to make it and stuff like that. So there's still plenty of rock out there. You just kind of have to dig deep to find it. But I wanted to kind of give 3 reasons as to why people use the phrase rock is dead and what I feel like people are actually meaning when they say that. And keep in mind, these are just my opinions, but I do feel like that my opinions, you can find a lot of evidence to back up my opinions. So, but keep that in mind if you're going to discuss in the comments or something like that. These are all everybody's opinion, and feel free to have your opinion and express it in the comments below. So here we go. Reason number 1, there are no more rock legends coming out. And what I mean when I say that is, back in like the 50s, so you had Elvis and Chuck Berry, B.B. King, those kinds of guys coming out and just, taking the world by storm, playing this new type of music which was just starting to become known as rock and roll. And then in the 60s, you had Jimi Hendrix. Going on in the 70s, you had Angus Young and Eddie Van Halen. Those guys were very, very influential, but they were also innovators too, especially Eddie Van Halen with the tapping of, on the guitar and all that. You also had, the drummers, John Bonham, Neil Peart, guys like that, and bass players, Geezer Butler, all kinds of people out there that were very influential that made people want to pick up that instrument and play. And, those guys were legends because of their, influence. Their status as rock gods, and that seems to be kind of not a thing really right now. And I think part of that is just with, YouTube and platforms like that, it can be so overwhelming. There's millions of amazing musicians putting themselves out there on YouTube, so good, so talented. But they're just not going to ever reach that godlike status because the amount of musicians that are out there is so overwhelming. It's hard to really narrow it out and pick out guys that could reach that kind of influential legend-like status. So the days of the legend, are probably gone. You never know. In time, things could correct themselves, and there could be something to come along or somebody to come along and really take the world by storm. But it would take quite a bit for that to happen, and that's just part of how things evolve and change. So we're just kind of have to roll with the times on that, and kind of live with the fact that maybe there might not be any more big legends coming out in the rock world anyways. Okay, reason number 2 is that rock stars kind of lost interest in being rock stars, and what I mean by that is it kind of all started in the 90s really, but in like the 70s and 80s, you had bands that were just wanting to have a good time, and same thing with the audience. The audience was just wanting to have a good time, and especially in the 80s, the 80s became all about partying and, doing drugs and drinking and stuff like that. Not advocating that kind of thing, but, people were just wanting to party all the time, and, the mainstream kind of gravitates more towards that kind of thing. Instead of like in the 90s, you had the grunge movement and stuff like that. And, now all of a sudden the narrative became not partying, showing off big houses, big cars, being surrounded by women or whatever. It became more about the dark, eerie, woe is me sort of thing. which that mainly applies to, I think the youth that are kind of struggling to find themselves in the world. They're real angry, depressed, upset, and they can't understand why everybody else is so happy all the time. So I think the grunge movement really related to that kind of thing, and then that kind of carried on into post-grunge and new metal into the 2000s, when you had bands like Linkin Park and 3 Days Grace, Breaking Benjamin, stuff like that. They were popular bands for their time, but their popularity as far as, monumental status really only lasted, a few years, and then they kind of faded out. Those bands are still playing today and everything, but they're not playing stadiums and stuff like that. The bands that are still playing the stadiums are, the big bands from back in the day that are still, selling out arenas and stuff like that. But yeah, so as far as the rock star status all of a sudden started gravitating towards, or let's say that mentality started gravitating more towards the hip hop and the pop side of things. And then even in recent years now, it started to morph itself into the country world too. So a lot of the country that's coming out today is very party oriented and just having a good time and stuff like that. And there's not necessarily much wrong with that. I don't write like that personally, but that's why rock was so big back in the day, was that the mainstream was playing all the rock music, on radio, and MTV had a big part in that too. And so it was a big deal, just all the rock artists were, partying all the time and singing about that, and the music was just fun and all that. And that kind of, as far as rock is concerned, a lot of artists got tired of that and switched over to a different kind of narrative in the 90s. And, so that's kind of what happened as far as why you don't hear a lot of new rock today on the radio and stuff like that, because not a lot of new rock is, doing the party thing. And that kind of leads into my third reason, that mainstream radio isn't playing new rock bands. You turn on the radio, you turn it on to the pop stations, and that's all you're hearing is pop or rap or hip hop or whatever, or country, and you're just not hearing a lot of new rock. And even the rock stations, are playing still the classic stuff. They're not playing any new bands. To find the new rock bands, you have to do all the digging yourself, and a lot of people, just don't care to do that. They would rather just hop in their car, turn on the radio, and listen to whatever's going on. And I think radio does that to people. Radio manipulates people to say, oh, you should like this, what we're playing right now. I guarantee you that if mainstream radio started playing new rock bands, like people who wouldn't necessarily listen to rock because all they do is listen to the radio, they would get it in their head and say, you know what, this is a good song, this is a good tune, this is a jam. I think people just don't have that mentality, because they're just listening to what the radio is telling them is good and what's popular, and so radio is just not, and they're just not playing rock. I don't necessarily understand why not, because there are plenty of bands out there that are very good, and there's a lot of rock bands that are still trying to do the whole let's party, have a good time thing and stuff like that. So they could probably still play that kind of thing, and I think it would go over well. But mainstream radio just doesn't care about that. They just care about the pop and the hip hop and the country, really, and rock's just kind of taking a back seat. So there you have it. Those are kind of my 3 reasons why I feel that people say that rock is dead. Like I said, it's not that their rock bands aren't out there. They are out there. You just have to dig deep to find them. There's plenty of great new rock bands out there. So I encourage you to, do your research, but there's plenty of new rock bands out there. So just do your research and you'll find them. Anyways, y'all, feel free to discuss this in the comments below. I want to have a genuine discussion on this and see what you guys think. I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate you checking it out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little notification bell so that way you get notified whenever I upload a new video. I will see you guys at the next one. Take it easy.